Okay, meeting will come to order of the Committee of Finance and Taxation on Wednesday, April 22nd at 7:30 p.m. We're going to take the roll call today to see who's here. And we'll start with myself. I'm here. Bob Desmond.
Here.
Vaughn.
Here.
Deb Roberts.
Here.
Ben Thomas.
Here.
Jesse Minor.
Here.
Diane Dolan.
Here.
John Anzavino.
Here.
Dave Laurie.
Here.
Scott Carrara.
Yeah.
John Rock.
Here, plus my friend Johnny Walker's here too.
Nice. Elliot Hansen.
Here.
Chet Collins.
Here.
Marty, I don't know your last name.
Here.
Okay. And Joe Volk.
Here.
Anybody else who's on the committee? I'm missing one guy. I don't know his last name.
Jim
Is he here?
McGlynn.
Anybody else here?
You're missing Jim McGlynn.
Jim McGlynn.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's-
Is he here?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, Jim.
Hi, Jim. Oh.
All right, we're all here. Excellent, excellent.
Can we get Jim to just kind of talk a little bit?
Jim, do some talking.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, how you feeling?
You
Everything
got-
good? You better?
Yeah, everything's good.
Okay, great. Glad to hear it.
What's your number end in, Jim?
9673. It's 860 number.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, you all set, Vaughn?
Yep, I was just naming, renaming Jim.
Okay. All right, I guess we're good to go. All right. The first order of business was, let's go over the minutes from the weeks of 2/27, 3/4, 3/5, 3/11, and 3/12. They were sent out to everybody. Is everybody good with those? Does anybody have anything they want to change?
I just have a question.
Mike, go ahead.
I know when we have motions to open and close, do we put down the people that make those motions and second the motions?
Usually, I think they do.
Yeah, that was the only thing I saw in the minutes that I was kind of surprised we didn't have motion by so-and-so, seconded by so-and-so.
Okay.
All right, you get that, Gilda?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
All right, we'll
I
make
will
those
take care of it.
changes then.
Yeah. I will take
Anything
care of it.
else? Anybody have anything else?
I have something, Ed.
Okay, go ahead.
On March 12th, I will abstain because I wasn't present on the vote to accept the minutes.
Oh,
And on March 5th, I needed noted in the minutes that I abstained from the clerk's budget and stepped away from the table.
okay.
That's very important.
Okay.
Did you get that, Gilda?
Yes, I did.
And I got one thing for Gilda.
Okay,
On the 11th, I wouldn't be voting on the 11th and 12th minutes because I wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't be voting on the 27th because I wasn't at that meeting either.
Okay.
anybody else have anything else? All right, do you want to approve them or you want to table them till next week and make the changes? Any discussion?
We can just approve them and then
You can approve them as noted.
will be made.
Okay,
You got to do a roll call for the vote. So if you have these noted that the people that were abstaining or what have you from certain things, you can just do a roll call for the meeting minutes as noted, and then you only have to do one roll call instead of 5.
I'll make that motion.
all right, great, go ahead.
Second.
Well, the motion is I accept that we accept the minutes as corrected for all of the meetings on February 27th, March 4th, March 5th, March 11th, and March 12th.
Second.
I don't think we can do that
Why not?
because, well, who's that? John? John, you weren't there. I wasn't there one of the nights. I can't.
That's why I said it would be as noted, because anybody who wasn't there
As
or had exceptions, or Scott stepped away and he's asked for that, so
Okay.
you're gonna be
Along with-
approving them as noted, and we've already said we're not voting on those particular ones. So I think that would be an acceptable motion.
I agree.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else have anything you want to say?
Yeah. Yeah, there was several meetings there that were before I was sworn in or sworn out, so I have to abstain on that.
Well, you wouldn't have been on the minutes to start with. I don't know how that works, but.
Oh.
You weren't here. I mean, you weren't officially, in official capacity.
Right.
So I don't know if that matters in this instance. Other than the one you were at. Which should be on that minute one.
So Ed, can you start the roll call?
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes with the suggested changes for Diane and Scott and the motions by persons' names. Approval subject to those adjustments. All those in favor? I'll go down the roll. Bob Desmond.
Aye.
Vaughn Enochian.
Aye.
Deb Roberts.
Aye.
Ben Thomas.
Aye.
Jesse Minor.
Aye.
Diane Dolan.
Aye.
John Anzavino.
Aye.
Dave Laurie.
Aye.
Marty.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
John. Rock.
Yes.
Elliot Hanson.
Aye.
Chet Collins.
Aye.
Joel Volk.
Aye.
And Jim McGlynn.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimous. And myself, I vote aye. And that's 16-0. Okay, that's done. All right, now we'll do the town manager request for reserve transfer for the COVID-19, $100,000. Did everybody get that 4 or 5 pages of information? Has everybody seen it?
I have it.
I haven't.
Everybody have it?
I received it, yeah.
Okay, I'll read the main letter real quick. These are for COVID-19 expenses. They want to transfer into a special account within the centralized purchasing department's budget. Be for $100,000. And the town manager believes this is more sensible than having multiple requests from different departments. They'll set up a COVID-19 account. It'll be a standalone. And these may be subject to reimbursement from FEMA down the road, subject to 75% possibly. And it'll be overseen by Sue Herman. And they will put those costs in that account. And they're looking to, currently they have spent $24,600 in some expenses. And supposedly have orders for another $12,800. And there could be possible payroll expenses going into this budget line item. Okay, Robin, if you're out there, can you go into a little more depth? And can you explain, I have just some general questions for the committee first, and then we'll ask questions. The supplies that were already spent, the 24,000, what were they, number one? Number two, what is the 12,008 that you got anticipated? And then what are some of the future costs that you're thinking that this might be used for? Go ahead, Robin.
Your audio's off, Robin.
She's not muted.
Hello, Robin.
She's
Not
muted.
muted.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
I can hear
I
you.
hear you now.
Can hear
Okay.
you.
So I thank you for the time, and I'm going to defer to Paul on the specifics, but I just want to take a second to explain a little bit the thought behind this. We are looking for the cleanest way to be able to define our COVID costs, because FEMA can be extraordinarily challenging on paperwork, and it's much easier to have reimbursement come when you can show that your expenditures were directly related. When we start pulling money out of all different line items, it becomes very complicated. One of the things we're having to do now is line items in certain departments are being depleted. We're having to dip into other line items within those departments. We don't feel that that's the cleanest and most transparent way and best way when we're going to be looking for FEMA reimbursement to be spending these funds. This is really, Bill Rose said it best, a relief valve for us to have so that as we purchase these items for COVID, we don't deplete everything else we have in the town. And, you know, yes, we're hopeful there'll be some free cash at the end of this. I put a restriction on all non-essential fourth quarter spending right now. So this is not, in theory, a permanent use of this money. Basically, my goal is to be borrowing from our reserve fund right now, with hopes that 75% of these purchases will come back from FEMA, and that at the end of the year, through very prudent budgeting, if we have some free cash, we also can put some of that toward reimbursing that reserve fund. I don't ask for this lightly. In 17 years, in positions similar to the one I'm in now, I've only asked for a reserve fund once before, and that was during a catastrophic flooding in a community. And it was the same principle. I had immediate purchases that I had to make. I had, a couple of $1 million in roadway repairs that had to be done. And I couldn't wait for the FEMA reimbursement to come through. And I borrowed against my reserve fund, basically, and FEMA ultimately reimbursed. So that's conceptually what I'm looking to do here.
Okay. All right, that's the outline. Paul, are you out there?
Robin,
Yes, I am.
you're cut out again. We can see that you're trying to talk, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear the dogs?
You can hear the dogs all right.
Yeah, Robin, we can't hear you. Oh no. Can't tell.
All right, Paul, are you out there?
Yes, sir.
Robin said she deferred to you for the technicals. You already spent $24,600 per the cover letter that Mr. Rose sent out to us. And there's an anticipated outstanding bills of $12,800. Can you shed some light on what that stuff is?
Actually, I cannot on the 24,000 because that letter didn't include any of the costs that I've incurred. But I can tell you that within the last 7 to 10 days, I've spent about $10,000 to $12,000 just in my department, and the costs and expenses that in regard to that letter are really just police and fire, I believe.
And we still can't hear Robin.
Yeah, well, see, we get it to work. Paul, what are some of the costs, like a mask and stuff? Is it disinfecting stuff? What, roughly, give us a little more idea what it is.
Yeah, it's all the above. I have a cleaning company coming to the police station twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, to disinfect with a fogger, $150 an hour. He also goes to both fire stations weekly. We're going to continue that.
Yeah, that's my next question. Yeah. Through the end of the year anyways, right? Okay. All right.
Hang on. That's one thing.
Okay.
Now we're going to do, some, I guess, specialized election procedures. So we need to buy plexiglass. We need to buy additional masks, additional gloves, additional disinfectant. gowns. It just adds up quickly, especially when the demand is really there.
You able to get the stuff? There's a big
I
supply
have
shortage.
received some stuff, and some other stuff is due in within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
Paul, you've already ordered that stuff for the election?
Yes, I have. Most everything, yes.
Really? Because that hadn't even been determined exactly how they were going to do it yet.
Well, I don't want to
They
wait.
spent the money on the mailings and just had everybody do a mail-in ballot.
I don't decide that. I just say we're going to have special circumstances, and I order the material.
Johnny, that's not allowed in the state. The state cannot have direct, straight mail-in balloting.
All right, Bill, are you out there, Bill?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yep. Anybody else hear him?
Okay.
I can now.
All right,
Bill, can
so,
you tell us what the already spent
well,
24,000 was?
I can give you the vendors and the amounts. I would have to go into each individual invoice in Munis and bring it up on the screen, the photocopy on the screen. But the big one was that from Worldwide Health Alliance is $11,250, and I believe that those are masks that the fire chief bought. South Coast Medical Emergency Services for $1,200. Abbey Medical Products for $7,800. Fantini Baking Company for $6,510. Lambert's. If the department head is out there, maybe they could explain what some of the stuff is quickly. Lambert's for $1,553.10. Let's see. Boundtree Medical $829.50. Home Depot for $520. ChemSearch for let's see. ChemSearch for $157.99. Amazon. I'll just round it off. $331. HD Supply $1175. Rocky's Hardware $280. Stoughton True Value $192. Next Gen Supply Group $4,784. McKesson Medical $88.77. And door-to-door dental for $240. Michael Brodieri, I think that's a reimbursement for supplies, $3,150.
Those were masks.
So if any department, in my mass, yeah. So if any department heads are out there, maybe they can explain what some of that stuff is without me having to go into, or I can go into the individual invoice. It's just going to take a little while. That's all.
This is John Rock. I don't feel we should spend a lot of time on this. Every organization needs a certain amount of flexibility similar to this. And from what I've heard, the purchases are necessary. It's an emergency. I don't think $100,000 is unreasonable. And whatever's not used now will probably be used in the fall. So
That'll be a different budget.
Yeah, excuse me, John, you're saying that we shouldn't have any more questions for
no,
for the
I'm
town
not
manager?
saying that, but I don't think we need a real deep level of detail.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, good, Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a total, 33,616.45 as of actual spent right now.
Okay.
That's assuming that would be town and school. We're not looking to replenish the school budget at this time, just the municipal departments. But it looks like 33,616, and I think we have another 12,000 of purchase orders out there.
Yeah, that's what your letter said, yeah. Okay, let me get this straight here now. If we approve this, the money you already spent, is that going to go back to those budgets wherever it came from?
What we anticipate doing is if somebody needs it, if somebody needs the piece of the 100,000 because they don't have enough expenses to cover the rest of the year, like their utilities and building repairs and supplies and things like that, we have in Munis what's called an invoice modification system, whereby the department heads fill out a form. They'll fill out a form saying, "I charge this to my budget. I want to charge it to the COVID expense account," and that would go to Susan. Susan would approve it. And it would come to us, and we would charge the COVID account and credit their budget account, and that will free up the money that they initially spent.
Yeah, so you just reimburse those particular items. Okay, all right, fine. Now,
Correct.
what happens, on May 1, then we can do whatever we want. Is that still true, Bill? Move things around?
You could, yeah, I think Rob was hoping not to come back to you multiple times for,
No, I'm
for this,
just
for
getting the
this issue.
theory here. Okay,
Right.
all right.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike Larissy, if you can hear me.
Yep, go ahead, Chief.
So, a lot of those invoices, you heard Boundtree, McKesson, you heard, I'm trying to think of that company that we initially bought 1,500 N95 masks for. That was for police, fire, visiting nurses, any department that needed them. The N95s are the masks that we need when we're exposed to actual patients, which has been, many every single day. We're not seeing the runs on the ambulance that we used to see, but most of our runs now are COVID related. And so I'll give you an example is when we go in, our 2 EMTs are totally geared up with gowns, goggles, face mask, gloves. And we've been very lucky to secure a lot of that equipment, well, the PPE. You can see the frustration with the governor when he gets up there and he says, he had a contract only to lose it. Early on, we did too. We're all in panic mode. We're seeing vendors that we never, dealt with before, because when we were scrambling for PPE, we had to get it where we could get it. A lot of the names, the vendors that you hear, and are some that we don't usually deal with. A lot of them are local in town. The HD Supply, the True Values, those are masks, everything like that we need. When someone had asked a question about, would some of these invoices that we paid go back into our accounts, and I'll give you my example that we're depleting our EMS account supplies, which is for ambulance for all supplies, whether it's for oxygen masks, just anything you can think of, anything cardiac related, medications. So yes, I need that money back into that account because it was obviously unexpected. For me to continue 3 more months, that money that we have already spent out of the account, needs to be, taken from, if you approve this transfer tonight from there, to replenish my EMS supplies. So we're all working together. The supplies that we have, we've been very lucky to get some from MEMA, which is no cost to us. We got very few from FEMA, but we've gotten a little. A lot of businesses have been stepping up that have been dropping off stuff. Right now, we can only wear the N95s. We can't wear regular cloth masks because they don't protect our personnel. And thank God, knock on wood, if anyone can find any near you, that we have not had one positive in our firefighters. We've had about 7 tested. They've been negative. And that's, I think, because we have a lot of things in place, a lot of policies, a lot of precautions, and it's all because of the PPE that we've purchased so far. So with that being said, right now we're looking good, but this thing could go on for who knows how long.
Yeah, I know.
And it's hard to get this equipment, and when we can get it, we need to get it. And I think John Brock had mentioned that, having this is going to go on. It could go on for a while, and this PPE is always going to be used. It's never going to go bad. So if someone has questions for me, I think this is a great thing because as you're looking at your budget, my budget, and I'm taking from different line items just to make sure that we have enough PPE town-wide. And so I really hope you support this. It's probably one of the toughest things we're dealing with the PPE. And when we have a chance to buy it, we need to buy it then. And this transfer will allow us to do that. And I think everyone has said, we're not looking to go through this $100,000. We just need it there to work through it. As like I said, as we need supplies, we order them when we can.
Need a go-to account. Understand?
Yep.
Okay, is Chief McNamara, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have anything you want to add for COVID type issues?
I would say that, you know, in our department, I'm sure people are aware, we had 2 positives early on, and another 6 or 7 people tested negative since then. We have been purchasing from local vendors, some within our town. We have had great success, and I have purchased a number of N95 masks from organizations and making sure that we're picking it up almost on a weekly basis, as many as 500 at a whack. And I purchased them out of my budget in order to make sure that we help the fire department and the visiting nurses. So it's delaying on purchasing these things when we can get them would cause us difficulty. So it was purchase them, and if they were coming out of my budget, we shared them with the fire department. That's what we would do, and we've been doing since the beginning of this. And we would figure out the finances afterwards in order to make sure that our staff are protected, and that's been our goal. But this account would obviously satisfy the ability for us to streamline all of our purchases, and that's our goal.
Okay. Are there any other department heads out there that have any comments they would like to talk about?
Mr. Chairman, I believe Paul Jaffoon has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I just wanted to echo what Chief Laracy said, that I would say 99% sure that I would be looking to replenish my, individual budget with some of this COVID money here.
Okay. All right. Any other department head that have a comment? If you're out there. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, who's that?
This is Bill. I just want to give credit to Paul. This was totally his idea to get the one consolidated account, so.
That's fine. Who's doing the check on the type of expense? Is Sue going to be in charge and you're going to bless it and then that sort of thing? How's it going to work?
It runs through Susan and me,
Okay.
with Bill obviously as a sign off on it.
Okay. All right. The members, I can go down the roll if you want to ask questions, or does anybody have anything else that they want to ask questions?
I do want to add that Fran Brutniti is directly involved as well to ensure that all of our procurement practices will comply with FEMA regulations too.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I got a question, Ed. John Anzavino. This is for you, Robin. I just want to be clear here because I watched you the other night or last week with the board when you presented this to them. And my understanding was you did want to take anything that was spent already and reimburse that from this fund because it becomes a very centralized compilation of all the expenses, which is what you were trying to get to be able to look for the reimbursements. Is that correct?
That's part of it, yes. And also to facilitate going forward what we're going to spend so that people aren't scrambling within their budgets and depleting line items, as the chief pointed, for example, the EMS line item.
Right, but there was a statement made that not necessarily putting the money back, but my understanding from your presentation the other night was that, yes, you would be looking to take whatever money was already spent that could be attributed to the COVID-19 and take it out of this transfer money and replenish the existing funds so that when you do apply for MEMA or FEMA, you had everything set up from one account and for accounting purposes and everything, that would be the way to go, which I agree with. I think that's the smart way to go.
Yeah. I'm hopeful we can do that as long as Bill Rowe has, those modification forms that he's talking about work for us. That's the goal that I have. Yes.
Okay. And the only other question I had was, I know at one point it was mentioned it could be end up supplementing salary lines. Could you explain that?
Yes.
And why?
That's overtime primarily. We have had to, if, for example, if we have officers out being tested and we have to put them on quarantine until they're tested and cleared, we then, because of staffing, have to, put other officers on the street. That now we have overtime issues. So there's a direct related, and one of the things Susan has been very strong on is documenting overtime that is directly related to COVID, because that is reimbursable by FEMA.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on
Yes.
how that was being accounted for and the reasons.
It does not supplement salaried employees, any extra hours I do as a result of COVID, for example. It's not about that. It is literally for the direct cost of the overtime in
All right.
cases where we've had to bring people in because of this.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ed.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
who's that?
this is Bill.
Good, Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what John was saying, what Rob was saying. John, this would be, obviously would put as many expenses as we could into that account to the extent of $100,000. The total expenses townwide could go over 100. Obviously, if there was no 100,000, if we used up the 100, then they'd have to keep it within their budgets. But everybody has to maintain worksheets for FEMA.
Yep.
To present to FEMA, separate worksheets. So that's going to be the real backup along with copies of the invoices. But yeah, we're going to try to capture as much as we can to the extent of $100,000 within that. But if it goes over that, then they'd have to, absorb it within their budget.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Hi, Dave has a question.
Yeah, Dave.
I think said through you. Dr. Grimm, thank you for, I 100% agree with John Rock. This is an easy vote. And the amount is easy as well. I have no problem with the amount or the background of why you're asking for it. The salary on paragraph 4, where you talk about replenishing salary, I kind of have a serious problem with that because I feel like we're a little bit blind as to what's coming in way of the budget. We got shown a budget that had notes at the bottom of each of the departments, or at least many of the departments. And but I haven't seen any accommodation for what you might be seeing as changes to the budget.
Yeah, this is simply, what we're looking at right now is simply overtime. And right now, when we're depleting overtime budgets, for example, you might be dipping into a salary line item to offset that. This is directly, again, COVID related. This is not somebody's salary adjustment.
I understand.
Their position.
I do
Dave, this is the 20 budget, not 21.
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
a transfer to just, all right.
20.
So, right, but doesn't this COVID account live past the 20 budget? It's going to live beyond
yeah, it dies on June 30th. And
right, but if the parameters of the entire account that they're building encompasses salary, then doesn't it bleed over into the FY21?
No.
Why? Why
You'd
not?
have to have a new line item or whatever in 21.
Right. I would
That makes no
probably
sense to me.
separately request, and if the money hadn't been spent, just carry it over with the creation of a new line item. But the bottom line is everything in the budget, the basic salaries, the basic overtime, those were all predicated on
Then you have no
pandemic.
then you have no problem
you out there?
Ed, okay.
Let me ask Bill a question.
This is Bill.
General question.
This is
Bill, if
this
you
is
have
Bill.
overtime on June 29th that is a COVID related, that would go in this bucket, right?
Yes. Well, it would be paid out of if the department has the money in their budget.
Yeah.
We're asking to pay it out of their budget rather than use this account.
Okay.
But they may not, they may be short on their overall bottom line salary. So what they could do is charge that portion of COVID to this special account, and then that will free up the money in their regular salaries budget. But to answer the question before, this money would not carry.
Purchases. Yeah. I think where you're going to see the direct charging is the supply purchases. The overtime is going to be where we just don't have any money left, and that's where Bill references it as a relief fund. Right.
Yeah, but on May 1st, we can move everything around after that. So it's just a question.
But again, I don't know exactly where we're going to be on May 1st with which departments are going to still need to do other regular town functions.
You got 2 months to go. I understand.
And we still have a town to run.
I understand that too. Excuse me. I understand all that. But why is it that we have no mention of this being restricted to FY20 at all in any of the description of this request? It's open-ended. It doesn't restrict.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill.
Yeah, good, Bill.
Yeah, David, these accounts close out on June 30th. All of the budget accounts close out on June 30th. The only time you would get a carryover is if somebody had an existing purchase order in at the end of June and they expected delivery, say, in the first or second week in July, then they get to carry over that encumbrance into fiscal 21. But after that, there would be no budget. The account wouldn't be budgeted, so they wouldn't be able to charge anything there.
Right, but there's, when we replenish this account for FY21,
Right.
there's no parameter
This is not being replenished for FY21.
We just go back to
This is
zero
just for
and start over
FY20.
again.
We go back
Yeah,
to
this is
zero.
going to be a
but
zero.
hang on, hold on one sec. Dr. Graham, are you planning to create in this account an FY21 budget?
No.
It's going
If
to
in
be zero.
FY21, I still have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on COVID-related material, I'll come back to you and request accordingly.
Right.
So we'll be transferring at that point. It's not coming out of the regular.
Right, it'll be a new request for 21.
So every year this comes out of reserve as a transfer from reserve.
Yeah, hopefully not, but if it,
well, what is the sort? Well, that's why I'm asking.
Well, you go to the budget first, and then if they run out, they come to us.
Oh, well, I have a question.
Who's that? Go ahead, whoever it is.
Deborah.
This is Deborah. My question is related to the FEMA reimbursement. So what is the process for that, and how quickly do they typically reimburse?
I'm on the line if you can hear me.
Oh, there you go, Susan's here.
Who is that? Susan? Oh, hi, Susan.
Yeah. Hi. Just to begin with, it's got off to a rocky start. The country's never done this. FEMA is extremely bureaucratic. MEMA is much better. I've gotten satisfactory answers, so I can give some direction to the department managers on this. Typically in a disaster, there's a weekend, a week, there's a period of time. There's no period of time in this disaster. It started for the state March 27th. They're allowing us to go back to January 20th and capture all expenses and charges since that time, which means I'll be going through many, many accounts in Munis to capture the invoices, because we didn't start, as most Massachusetts communities didn't have to start spending on this till March 20th. But that doesn't mean there wasn't cleaning supplies purchased prior to that, or things perhaps from the school department. There is no end date. We can carry this on as a FEMA project for as long as it goes. However, there is one process out there that they've gone over with many communities called Expedited Reimbursement. We have to get up to about $175,000, which we can then apply for 75% of that, but we would only get 50% of that up front, and all the reconciliation would be done at the end of the project. That's typically for healthcare agencies that are going to run out of money in this. It's really meant for the organizations that can't fund it any other way. If and when we find a need to that, I'll go to Robin and see how things look. Right now, I feel that we can stay away from that. I'll have a better feel when I gather up all of what has been spent since January 20th. The expense side, I am confident we will capture everything. Where I have been very strong with the departments is the Munis system doesn't allow us to differentiate types of overtime as far as an event, so the departments have to keep that in separate spreadsheets. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does answer the question. It doesn't answer the question about frequency, but I understand that no one knows at this point in time. But where I was going with that questioning is, as you get approval from FinCom to cover those actual expenses and those expected expenses, you may be able to report some of that to FEMA like on a quarterly basis, so you have an ongoing rotating flow of cash. So cash flow
Correct.
is what I'm
That's
really talking
correct.
about.
We can file a number of expedited purchasing reimbursements, but you have to get to, I think it's 175,000. Therefore, the 75% is 131,000, and we would get back half of that. If we have a need to do that, we certainly will.
Excellent.
Well, we really don't know. I mean, all 50 states are going to be doing this. This isn't like
Correct.
4 states.
Right.
This is going to be everybody. So it's going to take a while to get the money.
Ed?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, who's that? Joel?
It's Joel.
Go ahead.
My only question is the $100,000 transfer from the reserve fund solely for the municipal departments, or does it also include the school department?
I think it's only the town side. Town manager, you out there?
We lost your audio.
Chairman, this is Bill.
The letter said non-school.
Yeah, non-school. Yeah, that's correct.
Non-school?
They,
Thank you.
yeah, the school is keeping track of their COVID expenditures on their spreadsheets that we will use to get reimbursed. But this 100,000 is to be used by the municipal departments only.
Thank you.
Eddie, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so Ed, I have a question then.
Scotty.
When all of this stuff goes, when they're going to apply for the reimbursement, will the school and the town amounts be combined?
I would anticipate that at this time.
Yes.
I don't see why not.
Okay,
I mean, we've
well,
always,
this would
we
make the-
typically ask if they have any snow expenses, so we would ask if they have any COVID expenses.
Right. Well, it would just make the reimbursement much easier to get to that total.
That's true. That's true. You get to that threshold quicker.
I heard somebody else out there. Was somebody else got a question,
I got
Scott?
a
Was that you?
Scott,
Scott?
Yeah. Let me ask through you, Mr. Chairman, to Bill Rowe. The visiting nurses have a substantial retained earnings. Would that be able to be utilized instead of just reaching out to our fund? I mean, wouldn't it be in the same area of, health and stuff like that? Could that money be used? They have, I forget how much. That's why I'm reaching out.
They have spent some money out of their expenses so far. I don't anticipate that they're going to need any of this 100,000, but they have spent money out of their supplies, and they have given some of the department's supplies, I believe. Plus, they've applied for a grant, and there is a grant out there that we just set up. Susan might know better, but there is a grant out there that might be able to pay for some of those expenses.
What I'm trying to get at is, we go through this 100,000, God forbid, right? And we needed money because you can't get reimbursed right away. That money there, instead of depleting the whole finance committee reserve, could we get it from the visiting nurses and back up their fund again?
You have to be careful with enterprise funds, Scott. A lot of towns have gotten in trouble with the DOR because their budgets have been short and they've hit the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds are supposed to be used for enterprise business type expenses. So we have to be a little bit careful with that.
That was in there before, that we could reach in, and they said it was all right to do it. We did it before, and I can't remember.
No, that was a bylaw that was passed for town meeting could transfer money.
I would like to add that public health has received a grant. I believe it's 18,000, Susan.
Yes, that's correct.
And for example, that type of a grant, and that's overseen right now by Janice Bruce, who's our exec director of human services and head of public health. And she will, we will use funding, for example, from those grant sources before we even tap into, whatever way we can that complies with that grant before we even tap into what we're spending here. So while the reserve fund is a little challenging with the enterprise fund, and I know there's some wiggle room to do that, again, in an effort to keep this as absolutely streamlined as possible, a direct grant like that, I want to spend from first, then we go to our COVID account. And yes, if we got desperate, God forbid, we may have to look creatively elsewhere, but I'm hoping we won't have to dip into those types of reserves.
So that brings up a different question for next year. Do we need to up any line items in the V&A fund for supplies before we vote on our budget.
I don't believe so at this point. I'll talk to Janice as we move forward. But I don't believe so at this point. She has not indicated a concern about that yet.
Yeah, I just want to call attention to the fact that Scott Carrera did an amazing job using Zoom, but he can't open his email. I just wanted to recognize Scott Carrera for that amazing.
If you notice, the name says Stephanie, not Scott.
Yeah. Well, he still worked his microphone pretty good.
Slack.
All right, last call for any.
One other question, Ed. I did have one other question for Robin.
All right, go ahead.
Right, or Dr. Grimm. I know we got an email from DOR, and they had approved actually for COVID expenses. You could treat it like we can our snow, and we could overrun, and then you could actually amortize it over 3 years. I'm sure you've seen that. And I would just like you to address that to committee, why you would prefer to do this than take that approach.
Can't wait.
Robin, would you like me to take that?
Sure.
Or Bill, either one.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah.
It have to be Bill, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
So John, yes, there is a provision in the law whereby the Board of Selectmen can make a request to the Director of Accounts. And the Director of Accounts can authorize the overdraft of a particular account. And then it gets raised on next year's recap, similar to the snow and ice. But you have to go through that process. You just can't overdraft the account without going through that process. So, and a lot of times, I've been to seminars and the Director of Accounts all the time will come back and they'll say, well, do you have any money in your reserve funds? You know what I mean? So this is basically the simplest route.
All right, no, I agree. If we have the money in our reserve, which would be my next question to you, is how much do we have in it? But, if you can pay for it, you pay for it now, don't pay for it later, so.
Yeah, thank you, John. That was my
So
question too. How much money we have?
Okay, so in the regular reserve, we haven't used anything, so we have 350,000 in the regular.
Okay.
And 50,000 in the fuel reserve.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Bill.
All right, I guess, are we all done talking? Let's have a vote.
Yes. Mr. Chairman.
Who's that?
Yeah, this is Vaughn. I just had a question. Leftover money, is anything left over that just goes into free cash or what?
Yes, any turnbacks flow into free cash, correct.
Okay, and then the FEMA reimbursement, if that happened before the end of the fiscal year, did that go back to the Finance Committee Reserve Fund?
No.
There's no chance, Vaughn, that will happen before the end of the fiscal year.
Just ask.
Unless we can make that.
Before the end of next year.
And
unless we can make that 50%.
It wouldn't go back to the reserve fund anyway.
General fund.
Right. That's right.
Okay, that was
Comes part of free cash.
You might want to think of this. Might want to think of an analogy to the veterans benefits, where we have to front the money, and then we get the reimbursement, 75 reimbursement from the state, a year or so down the road.
So if this comes back from FEMA in July, for example, that doesn't go back to the FinCom reserve, it ends up falling into free cash then, right?
Correct, yes.
Just ask more for reserve next year, Vaughn.
Exactly. Thank you.
You got us back this year.
All right, we good?
Robin's saying something because I see her moving around, but I don't hear her.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, somehow my mic does that even if it's not muted. But I mean, what I assure you is my goal here isn't to try to find an extra 75,000 next year to play with. Whatever we get back, it rolls back into free cash. That's our goal, to put it back into free cash. I'm not trying to find 75,000 to plop into next year's budget. I'm hoping we don't have to deal with that.
Now, my other question is, I understand that there's going to be some paperwork that gets handed around and signed whenever the department needs that money. Is the Finance Committee going to get a copy of any of that?
The board has asked that I provide a weekly update on any purchases that have come out of this.
Can the Finance Committee get a copy of that too?
Yeah, so there'll be a weekly update on this. And this is part of the, the checks and balances to ensure that this money is being used exactly for what we are assuring you that it is.
So the Finance Committee will get a copy of that report every week then?
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, last call. Anybody else? All right, we're good. All right.
I would make a motion, Ed, that we approve this transfer for $100,000 to the COVID-19 special fund.
Second.
Inside of the central purchasing budget. Okay.
I'd like to add a friend,
$100,000.
I'd like
Can
to
I have
add
a
a,
second?
I'd like to add a friendly motion to that.
I'm listening.
My motion
Well, you gotta
is,
make
my
the
motion is to, since it's gonna have the replenish payroll clause in this letter for the parameters of this money, that we limit this article to FY20 only, that it doesn't get restarted until the finance committee votes again to reestablish the COVID account. If we didn't have the payroll aspect in it, I'd be okay to let it go on and on and on into perpetuity. But I want to see a limit to just capping it off at FY20. She only wants it for FY20.
Any budget we do, David, is only for the fiscal year. As of June 30th,
No,
it's done.
right, but they're establishing this in perpetuity.
In centralized purchasing budget. This is part of the FY. This is part of this year's budget that they're adding this special line in.
If I'm not mistaken, John, through you, Ed, is that we're establishing this as a permanent account in the system that could be replenished by the budget.
No.
It can be, because it was just said that we can replenish this with the budget.
You could, but we have to vote the budget. You just wouldn't vote to approve it. That's all. So it doesn't really matter.
I would have to present that, which it's not presented in 21's budget at this point. So I would have had to have presented that to the board would have had to approve, and then I'd be presenting that to FinCom. At this point, if this goes into 21, I'll end up coming back exactly to what we're doing now and say to you guys, hey, we went over, we need more, or I need this carried over. I didn't spend it all by June 30th. I still need the last 40,000 that's sitting there. And then you'd have to revote it, as I understand it.
No, it just dies. It goes into free cash. It doesn't matter.
She's only
Yes,
using it
I
for
understand.
FY20, but yet the account will be a part of the budget in the future.
No,
That's why I want. Yeah.
Nobody has said it would. Yeah, nobody has said for sure it would. It would only be if we were still in a problem and I needed to recreate this account, then I would come back.
No, the FY21 budget for the central has already been presented. It's not in there. They'd have to amend it before we vote by May 30th on something. So right now it doesn't exist, but 21.
I'm not willing to accept the friendly amendment because I don't think it's necessary. The budget ends June 30th.
I agree with John.
All right.
That's
All
my
right, so there's
opinion.
the motion. I will do the roll call. We had a second, right?
Yes.
I seconded it.
All right. You got that, Gilda, whoever seconded?
Scott.
Anything? Scott, okay.
S. Carrara.
Yeah.
I got it.
It covers it all.
Okay, all those in favor, I'll go down the roll of
Chairman,
approving
I think we're gonna need a roll call, Mr. Chairman.
to the COVID-19 line item in the central purchasing budget. Bob Desmond,
Aye.
Vaughn Enochian,
Aye.
Deb Roberts,
Question, is this the original motion that John had
yes.
that we're voting? Aye.
Ben Thomas,
Aye.
Jess Minor,
Aye.
Diane Dolan,
Aye.
Johnny Anzavino,
Aye.
Dave Laurie,
I'm cringing, but yes, I.
Artie,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
John Rock,
Aye.
Elliot Hanson,
Aye.
Chet Collins,
Aye.
Joel Volk,
Aye.
Jim McGlynn,
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous, 16-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're getting through it.
Stick around, Robin. Okay, I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, you have to do,
You gotta get a roll, Ed.
you gotta do roll call when you're doing Zoom, Ed.
It was Johnny Anzavino that made the motion. Who seconded it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Gotta be a roll, Ed. Every vote has to be a
Everything,
roll.
huh? Oh, boy. All right, Bob Desmond,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Deb Roberts,
Aye.
Ben Thomas,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
John Angelino,
Aye.
Dave Laurie,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
John Rock,
Aye.
Elliot,
Aye.
Chet,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
chair votes aye. All right. Okay, first order of business is with the town manager. There's some talk about there may be withdrawal of town meeting warrant articles. Any news on that?
Yes, Mark Tisdale and I sat down, well, not in person. Nobody sits down together anymore. We've each gone over the list. Mark reached out to people like Paul, Tom Fitzgerald, Chief Laracy, and we have gone through and made recommendations to narrow it. We are presenting that to the board for discussion on April 28th. The board will be taking up a vote on a streamlined warrant. At this point, what we are primarily looking at are the borrowing articles. Some of the zoning and planning, the zoning articles, we'd like to leave because we do want things in place that when things get back up and rolling, we want things ready to roll forward. And so it's a delicate balance. I want to stay confident and positive that as a town, we're going to come out of this and we're going to get back to the development and growth that we had. And that's why those zoning articles are so important. But I also realize that at this point, asking the taxpayer for borrowing that we absolutely do not need at this point is just not fair. And so we had streamlined it a significant amount. As I said, drafts have gone out to the board just for their preliminary information, and there will be a vote on April 28th, I believe.
Okay, so that's where that's at. All right. Okay, this meeting was to try out the Zoom, do the reserve request, and just get an update on the articles. That's all I was kind of planning on for tonight. Does the members have any discussion or thoughts on this process so far? Does it look like it's okay, or I don't know, anybody want to chime in on how it went?
I'll chime in. This is Ben Thomas. I just wanted to commend Vaughn for his hard work leading up to this meeting. I think the meeting has run really smoothly. I've been doing a lot of scouting and public meetings on behalf of the state agency I worked for. And I just want to commend you, Ed, and Vaughn for your hard work. I think it's gone really well. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Vaughn.
Good job, Vaughn.
Vaughn.
Good job, Vaughn.
Second.
Hey, Ed?
Ed, I do have a question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead,
No,
John.
go ahead, Diane, go ahead.
I just was wondering if there were any call-in people, townspeople, if we could ask them if they have, if they were happy with the meeting.
Yvonne, what's on your board? You got anything on there for anybody else?
Well, there's phone numbers on there. If anybody wants to speak up, just speak up and we can name them.
Hi, folks. Mark Zemanian from the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority. Just wanted to comment that this has gone pretty smoothly. My own experiences try and get the members to mute their microphones when they're not talking, because you do get a little bit of background interference. But all in all, guys, great job, and gals. Thank you.
Anybody else up there, Vaughn?
Thanks, Mark.
Other people, if people want to chime in.
I do want to thank you all again for your support on this. It's not something I came to lightly. It's nothing we ever want to do, but here we are.
Keep up the good work, you guys.
Before we go, Ed, I do have a question. We have a thing here for FY 20 and 21 budget, and I have a question on it.
Oh, go ahead.
With what we've been going through, I want to know have our local receipts gone down enough that it's going to affect the FY 20 budget and in turn the FY 21. But I think the biggest thing that I was concerned with, because I know Scotty will remember back in 2008 when the market took a deep dive, we had some big trouble. And my concern is the biggest trouble we had was when the market took a dive. What does our pension get paid for? The retirement fund. It gets paid from their investments. And when those took a big hit, we ended up having to pay a much bigger nut. And are we seeing anything like that for this year as well as next year with the way this has gone?
So I'll defer to Sue on the pension questions and in depth on the receipts, but I will say she had some positive news, thankfully, through the third quarter on some of our local receipts, so that this year's budget should not be negatively impacted too much. Susan, you want to address that pension question though?
On the pensions, I've just reached out to a few people because it's an obvious problem. The funding schedule, the pension fund original schedule should be fully funded by 2029. In the past, when Massachusetts has gone through these wrenching kinds of times, it's either PURAC or Norfolk County can file legislation, and I'm not sure exactly how it works, to extend the date that the fund needs to be fully funded. Therefore, it kind of mutes, if you pay it out over 20 years rather than the next 9, it's less of a burden to the towns. I can't imagine that this idea is not out there. I can't imagine that it's not being thought of either at PURAC or Norfolk County. I have reached out. I haven't heard yet. As soon as I do, I'll let you know.
All right. Well, I know I've lived through it once, and it wasn't a pleasant time, and I was just concerned that we could be getting hit with making the game.
It will be
increase.
Our 21 assessment has been through all of the process, and that assessment's been issued. Whether they are willing and I think they can go back and change it, and that's what I'm trying to bring their attention to. But I can't. I would imagine I'm not the only one in Massachusetts thinking of this.
I know.
I mean,
but the town got hit with it back in 2008 when the market went down the tubes. All of a sudden, the portion that we had to pay to Norfolk County skyrocketed because the investments went downhill. And certainly it's been a big hit.
Sounds like that's going to be a 22 issue.
I can't imagine that the towns aren't lobbying for some kind of change in 21. And my guess is if it doesn't happen in 21, the amortization schedule will be stretched out. There's 351 communities going through this. We're not the only one with local receipts that are at risk and people that might not be able to pay their taxes. There is some good news on the local receipts. For the third quarter on the restaurants and hotels, we need $90,000 in the fourth quarter of this year to make our 2020 estimate for restaurants. We've already made the estimate for hotels. Next year, I'm not going to venture to guess on next year.
Oh, my biggest concern for this year and even maybe into next year would have been for the pensions because they're paid from Norfolk, and those are based on their investments. And when their investments took a hit 12 years ago, we took a big hit. And I'm sure Scott remembers that.
That is
as far
correct.
as the local receipts, yes, I would be concerned that if the restaurants are what's left, most of them are closed or they're doing a much more limited business. So I would think that we're probably not going to hit the number that
and the town has put on takeout and pickup on the website, all of the restaurants. I mean,
I understand that, but I know some of them is still closed, and I'm sure they're not doing as brisk a business on the takeout as if people were still coming in to eat.
I think that's
We all know it's going to go down. We just don't know the magnitude.
I was just curious. Good, that's all.
Hey, Ed.
I got a question for Sue too on the health plan, Sue. Are you out there, Sue?
Yes, I am.
We had any COVID-19 hits for the plan for this year?
It does not appear that we have. I don't know every claim that's coming through. What I can tell you that since the start of this, Human Resources under D has really pushed the telemedicine. We don't have a claim when people use telemedicine. Telemedicine is wrapped up into our administrative fee. We were able to do that when we went to one administrator. I
Don't worry
see
about that. Don't worry
claims.
about the big stuff, who's on the ventilators and all the big dollar stuff. But anyway, all right. Are you still comfortable with the 21 estimate?
Am I still comfortable with it? The estimate changes all the time. I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable with an estimate.
Well,
But
as the number currently presented for 21 budget, are you okay with that? So,
the 21 appropriation?
yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Ed,
Yes.
what about new growth? Are we projecting the same 800,000 that we have been every year, or are we lowering that?
I don't. We have to discuss that. We haven't got that far yet.
And also, is
That's
the
kind of
state,
baked in the cake for 21 because it's as of January 1. So whatever it comes out to, it's already baked in the cake. It's
right?
It's next year. 22 will be.
And is my other question is the cherry sheet, does it maintain itself through to FY22? We're good until FY22?
That's a
Mr. Chairman?
idea.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I don't want to be a stick in the mud, but it just came out on the news that the Senate Majority Leader is not in favor of any federal money for states and localities, that bankruptcy would be a better route. So we gotta be careful that House Ways and Means, we gotta get on top of that as soon as it comes out and see if they've cut into that.
Is that federal or state?
No, the Senate Majority Leader isn't in favor of any federal or state or local aid.
No,
from
that's the
federal government.
federal Senate, not the state Senate.
The federal Senate, yes.
Right.
All right. Well, the state aid's a wild card for 21 and 22 because the state's going to lose billions of dollars on the revenue side, and they're going to be out billions on the expense side already. So we already budgeted what they thought they were going to give us.
Right, but does that require recalibrating the budget?
Well, we can talk about lowering our estimates on revenue, which we're going to talk about anyways for 21. But I think we have to wait till the supplemental in November to see what gets voted because they have no idea what they're going to do, the state. Because lottery receipts are taking a hit, which means the local aid turnback number is going to be different. And are they going to still approve the school thing, the new spending and all that? Who knows? When they're billions short, I have no idea. So we'll have to wait and see. But
Ed,
right now we have to go with what the estimate is.
Ed, this is Ben Thomas. I hope you can hear me. I just want to add that last week the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and the State Administration and Finance Agency had an economic roundtable on the very thing that you're talking about and what the impact both on the economy as well as on state revenues would be. Vaughn will be sending out a summary of that economic roundtable. It includes a variety of estimates on what the revenue impacts at the state level will be. I think overall it's likely that in FY21 they're anticipating a 14 to 20% reduction in state revenues from FY21, as well as a variety of other impacts. And as you're suggesting, I think that will certainly impact local aid. So I'd encourage the members to review that summary and sort of get a handle on what at the state level, what they're anticipating the impacts would be, because that will certainly the poop rolls downhill, I guess, is the lesson.
That's right. Yeah. And let's hope that they don't cut this year's state aid, but the 2 months left, which they could probably do if they wanted to, but hopefully they won't. But
Eddie, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but getting back to the articles and where we stand and whether we have the money for it or not, or whether we should go forward. Plymouth is like the largest town in Massachusetts, and they have shelved everything on their their town meeting as far as articles. And one of them involved the new fire station that they wanted to build. And I think Carver followed suit, and I heard that Mansfield is following suit. So there's a lot of them out there that they're only pushing through the essentials. And I think that we might have to look at that too really hard, because police cruisers are basically a selectman policy. It's an article, but the 3 police cruisers are like it's a selectman policy that was voted, because I was on the board when we voted that. And stuff that I don't know what shape the town's going to be in. You just look at it, it's like a ghost town. I mean, people, I'm not sure who's going back to work that fast. I'm not working right now because it's a little too hot these next 2 weeks.
Yep. No, well, we have to wait till April 28th and see what the selectmen come up with. So they're meeting next Tuesday.
Well, I'm just saying, with the amount of people that are out of work, and if you see the numbers on the unemployment, nobody's going back bang like it is. It's going to be a crawl, and we might not go back as fast as all the other states.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Eddie, Eddie, I don't know if you can see
next
the whole
week about
screen.
that, so we'll see.
All righty, Eddie. Thank you.
Anyway,
I don't know if you got the whole screen up, but the chairman of the board, Bob O'Regan, is trying to get your attention.
I can't see it. Vaughn, you're in charge. Turn him on, Vaughn.
He's on.
Hello, Bob. You out there?
Somebody have said I'm way out here, but I agree with the sentiment that we can't ask the taxpayers to pay for a lot of big projects. So we have to be very prudent in what we go forward with. On the other hand, I think it's inevitable, despite what Mitch McConnell may have put out today about his position on local aid, there's going to be some stimulus money coming. There's going to have to be a stimulus program coming. In the past, we have not been well positioned to take advantage of stimulus programs. Stimulus programs typically capital programs, building programs, and they are required to be shovel ready. In the last, Great Recession, I think we missed out on some great opportunities for important capital projects because we weren't ready. Other towns got the money, we didn't. We could have done some of the things we have needed to do. I think some or all of the high school might have been paid for. Park Street Sewer would have been paid for. We could have dealt with Freeman Street Fire Station, maybe the police station back then. And I'm not saying we go forward with all these things. I just want folks to understand that strategically, we need to figure out if we're going to qualify for some of these stimulus money, which is good for the town. It puts townspeople back to work. It helps us move ahead. We need to position ourselves so we qualify. Many times that means shovel-ready projects. And in order to be shovel-ready, they have to be approved. I'll take the example working with some people in town meeting on Park Street Sewer. There were some questions about whether it could go forward because of some of the geology, the rocks in the ground. So we put into the steps for that a hard stop until the borings were done. Using that as and the borings came back okay. I think it would be healthy if we, which I'm hoping during May the Board of Selectmen can look at, is prioritizing projects that are good for the town that hopefully will qualify for stimulus money and line them up. I don't think we fund them. I don't think we ask the taxpayer to pay for them, but we get the approvals we need so that if they qualify, we can get them stimulus money and not lose out again. So that,
Can I ask a question on that?
I just want people to be let's all work together. There's a silver lining in this terribly dark cloud, and let's try to find it and not let it flow over us again.
Can I throw an idea out to that point?
Who's that, Dave?
This is Dave. Yeah, I was thinking a lot about that very topic around the sewer project. And I'm wondering if Dr. Grimm or the chairman, Bob O'Regan, would be interested in dismissing the sewer project article, but do it with a revision where instead of paying for a sewer project, you end up putting in a feasibility study the same way we did for Park Street section, but do it for the rest of the town. So let's say you had like $1.5 million for a feasibility study, new money, instead of the 7.3 million. So you're pulling, let's say, close to $6 million off of the cost of the article, but creating a shovel-ready situation for the rest of the town, or as many of the streets as possible against whatever $1.5 million would get you. But could you revise the article so that it took away the 7.3 million as a project and made it shovel-ready with a feasibility study?
Well, a feasibility study is not going to make it shovel-ready. A feasibility study is sort of the opposite of shovel-ready. Feasibility is, can we do it? If we do it, what will it look like? So we're at the design stage where we would be ready, to do that. And let's, take a minute to pay attention to what constructing Park Street Sewer will do now and would have done had we been ready to do it during the American Recovery Act, when maybe it would have been paid for by the federal government.
Right. But
it will build our tax base. It'll make us less susceptible to these downturns.
But if you vote for a $7.3 million project, A, you might not get the votes, and B, we lose out on the opportunity of getting that project funded through the infrastructure grant money that might come from the federal government.
No, that's exactly the opposite of the point I want to make. We can't go under the prior stimulus programs. You cannot go and apply for those if you're not committed to build it. So it needs they would need town meeting approval for us to go for stimulus money. If we pull it and instead we fund another feasibility study for the whole town, you're talking how many years before that feasibility study is in? So we missed the boat.
No, you're saying you want us to vote for bonding over $7 million, and you're saying that the government will look at that and say, oh, don't worry about it. Take that bond off your books because we're going to give you the money instead.
That's what stimulus money is all about.
Well, you could expand the project to include phase 2 instead of phase 1. Do both of them, but that'd be about it.
But that would be where let's using that as an example, we would discuss about how to approach that. So even if it's approved, we would delay going forward until the economy recovers.
Can you add a clause that says if and only if it's funded through a federal grant program?
The short answer I would say is no. Just like the MSBA, we couldn't have approved the high school with a condition of town meeting vote that we build this high school only if MSBA pays for it. But this is how, all working together and understanding the direction we're in, we can get these things done. We have to be strategic, and there are opportunities.
All right, well, we get the idea there, but does June versus November on a second and fall town meeting going to make that much of a difference?
Depends on the cycling of this money. Other towns are ready. They'll be at the head of the line to get it. Does Stoughton want to be at the end of the line and lose out?
You can make those arguments at your the 28th meeting, because with the sewer project, we need a decision on our hookup policy, which has not been determined yet. So without a revenue source, we can't even go forward with the project. Hopefully that'll be resolved soon.
Yeah, I had hoped to take it up, but would probably that'll be, if not the 28th, the week after.
And I would just second the chairman's comments, Mr. Regan. I think it's really important that we be strategic and we look to the future. As much as it is easy to think about austerity and to think about cutting back and not investing, the future of Stoughton requires that we think about how to build our economy over the long term. And that sewer project is a perfect example about how we can do that and think about building businesses into the future and spurring some local investments in the short term, even in the midst of a recession. And I would share his view too, as well, that we can anticipate, despite what the majority leader likes to say, that we can anticipate that there's going to be significant state and local federal investment to address the crisis. So I think we need to not throw the baby out with the bathwater and make sure we don't abandon these projects that we know are necessary for the long-term prosperity of the community.
We want to catch the economy on the upswing, and in order to do that, we have to be ready.
Okay, I have a question for the chairman. The election has been set for May 30th. I understand there's a 27 or 8-day rule before you can have town meeting. One, is that true? And if so, will June 29th be the first day of town meeting?
Well, that's something for the board to decide. We do have an opinion, a verbal opinion that's coming in writing, that the emergency legislation that allowed the board to reschedule both town meeting and the election also will allow for the scheduling of town meeting to be in a period shorter than 27 days. So the
And when
preference
will
was
that
to
be
have,
known? Because my timetable depends on that date. So
well,
when
the
will we know
board,
the answer to that?
the board will take that up tomorrow night.
Okay.
And if the board sets town meeting for June 23rd, we'll know that tomorrow night.
Okay, so we'll find out tomorrow night. Okay. All right. Any other general comments about the budget or articles from any of the members?
Mr. Chairman, this is Ben Thomas again. I'm just wondering if we can get some sort of estimate from the Great Recession on what the revenue impact were for the town as the state and country entered that recession. If we're thinking 14 to 20% at the state level for revenue impacts, is there some way to estimate what's going to happen at the level? And can we have it before we vote on an FY21 budget?
Not quite sure. Bill sent out a spreadsheet to us a few months ago with the 08, 9, 10 numbers on it to everybody. I had him do that up in anticipation of this thought. The biggest hit was to excise tax, but there was also a nice big freebie from the government, from the feds for education, a $1.5 million grant of some kind. So that was the education, but was going to take a hit because they cut the state aid. So it's hard to say on the magnitude because 08 was a lot, I would say, less than this one's going to be, because this was a complete shutdown of the economy. 08, we were still open. So I think it'd be really hard to grasp on the impact of revenue, but it's probably going to be more than a little.
I remember the school department had to lay off about at least 20 personnel.
So that's kind of where that's at, right, as of like sort of now. You got that? Spreadsheet is out there. We can resend out again if anybody wants it. Bill, if you could resend that, that'd be good. The one you did up 08, 09, the total revenues?
Yep.
Do you remember when you did it?
You did it about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I sent it out. A couple months ago. I don't know. Right.
Yeah, it was right. It was right before. It was around the 15th of March. It was right after your last meeting, I think. Last Thursday night meeting you had, around the 12th or something like that.
You
You
could take a look at
week.
that as an idea.
But I can send it. I can send it out to everybody again. It's like a 4-year comparison.
Yeah, thank you. Ed, I have a question for Dr. Grimm. Through you, Ed. Hi, Dr. Grimm. I just wanted to know the budget. We just got the revision of a budget that showed notes on the departments. Are we going to be voting on this exact budget, or are you revising the budget before we vote for the warrant?
No, at this point, I am not revising. I'm talking to other town managers, depending on where they are in their budget cycle. Some are revising, some are not revising. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that, I mean, you guys are going to look at certainly the revenues and the receipts, and that's something that over the next month or two, I'm hopeful we'll have a better sense of. The one thing with the budget is, what we budget doesn't necessarily mean what we're going to spend. And I'm just not at this point ready to decimate the 21 budget.
I didn't say decimate.
No, I know you didn't, but I know that, I know you didn't, but to be honest with you, the budget that I presented to you is a pretty lean budget. And at this point, if I had to cut dramatically, which we may, we would be decimating certain aspects of town services.
Yeah, and the same question for Dr. Marcus. I know he might be out there. Is there going to be any changes on the school side?
Same thing. I would echo what Dr. Grimm said. Right now, the budget that we presented is what we're hoping for. I think obviously every day we're looking at the news and hearing different forecasts and things like that, and how the Student Opportunity Act may be impacted and things like that. So we've presented the budget. The school committee has agreed to it. It's out there, and if things change dramatically, obviously we will take a look at it. But right now, I'm with Dr. Gray in the sense that we presented a budget that we feel comfortable with.
Right. Well, the reason I brought it up is because if we deplete the funds and we can't finish the year, we don't want to see anybody get hurt by that. That if there were ways to take some of the increased cost increases out, that it would protect a lot of the jobs of the personnel on both the town and school. So I'm only saying it in order to maintain the level of service with the people we have, and not get hurt by being short-sighted over the situation, especially since we haven't made any votes yet going into this budget.
Well, I think the challenge there is that if you look at the vast majority of departments that we presented to you, there aren't a lot of increases in any discretionary spending. I mean, therein lies the challenge. So it's a philosophic discussion at this point. And you know, I think Dr. Marcus, I can't speak for him, but based on what he said in our conversations, we're just watching this on a day-to-day right now. And you know, the news changes, the whole question of state aid changes, our local receipts. I mean, it was good news, for example, this year that our receipts held where they were. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the fourth quarter with the takeout business. And we have hundreds and hundreds of restaurants still doing this. I realize that's not the same as sit-down restaurants, for example, but it might not be as dire as it could be. And so again, you know, we're watching. We may make adjustments at the last minute. I mean, things are moving. There's no playbook, you know. Not
I
to be
understand.
cliche, but
I was just going to say, I can't speak for anybody else but myself on the finance committee. And I just believe that we could probably find a lot of our reserves, rainy day funds, in order to handle a lot of the capital purchases that would otherwise fall into a budget if we knew that there was a very, very sharp pencil handling the rest of the aspects of the budget. But as a team working to take care of things with the reserves and careful budgeting. But I didn't know if we were going to look at this and say, oh, it's just a bump in the road, but full steam ahead, or it's a kind of a bizarre feeling right now that we're moving along as if nothing happened with the budget when it feels a lot like something just happened.
well, no, believe me, nobody feels like nothing just happened. And the bump in the road is a crater that I feel like I've driven into instead of over. But, you know, again, the uncertainty puts us in a position where, and the fact that we've already sharpened the pencil so much already, you know, I'm looking at efficiencies. We've restructured already for efficiencies. We continue to do so through attrition. We haven't hired many positions over the past year and a half. Right now, we're not hiring unless it's a critical position that we need to have to keep the town going forward. You know, those are the types of things we're doing right now in the short term to try to trim back. And those are the policies that will stay in place right now, all non-essential spending. We'll go into next year with that if we have to.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I can ask a question. So has anyone thought about doing a 1/12 budget as a way to extend our vision into the future? As the town manager said, these things are sort of changing day by day, and it's hard to estimate and project what's going to happen. I feel like as a finance committee, as much as we can slow walk a FY21 budget decision, we will be better suited potentially to make good fiscal decisions based on for example, what the House budget is, what the Senate budget is in terms of local aid and such. And so, one, I'm just wondering if anyone's thought about a 1/12 budget, so just a budget for the first month of FY21, and then two, if we can try to slow walk this a bit as much as possible.
Second.
I'm against the 1/12 budget. I think we pass it, the one we have, we take down the revenue estimates, and we could always do supplementals in November or rearrange things when we have a better idea of what's going on.
If we did a 1/12 budget, would we have to come back in July and have the town meeting vote on the remainder 11 months?
Yeah, town meeting has to vote everything.
Yeah, I'm with Ed. I'd say let's do the best we can, and we can always revise it later.
Anybody else?
I just think it's nuts. Like, why can't you have like a 6-month, where we could handle it in a special?
This is the way it's been for 250 years. We survived 1919, which is a lot worse than it was. Life will survive. We will.
But it's year to year or month to month. But it's no. That's it.
Well, like what you got to do, but you got to do what you got to do, and we'll come out on the other side. We will survive.
I mean, if we have to have a special town, we'll probably have a special town meeting in November. The budget can be voted on again.
Right.
Oh, it could? I didn't know that.
Out there?
Is that right? A budget could be voted on during special?
Yeah, you could have a supplemental.
As long as it's not too late, because you need at least 45 days to get the tax recap into, so we can set the tax rate.
So what would the deadline? What's the deadline? What's that deadline then? We should think about that.
November, early November, to have it.
Yeah, you can't have a meeting past November 15th if you're gonna have budget items for 21 on it.
So we should be making a recommendation about making sure that there's a special on the calendar. That's right.
Bob, you out there?
No, I'm hearing on the idea to look in a fall town meeting. I think end of October, first week in November is on my mind to deal with the fiscal year issues, but that's nothing that's been yet discussed with the manager or on the board. That's something we're going to have to take up. But my own thinking is that we would have a special in that period of time, and that's when we would make adjustments to the fiscal year 21 budget.
Makes the most sense to me. Anybody else have a comment?
Yeah. No, just the email you talked about from Bill. If anybody is looking for it, he sent one out on March 20th, and it's the local receipts 2007 to 2010. That's what had the PDF attached with for the 4 years. If anybody's looking for it ahead of time.
Okay, thanks, John. All right, I guess I'm not sure where we go, but I think we have to wait till April 28th to see what the selectmen are going to do with articles. We still need to clean up some stuff on the budget that we haven't got to. A lot of some department heads and the school budget and things. And if town meeting gets moved up to June 23rd or whatever, I was thinking we have to be done by May 30th for the 29th. We'd have to be done sooner than that if it gets moved up, which they won't know until tomorrow night they're going to vote or whatever they're going to do. So we're looking at maybe a 3 or 4 week timetable to get everything done. That's kind of what it's shaping up as of tonight, what we're looking at. And we may have to do it on Zoom here. I don't know what the rules are going to be. We'll probably find out next week from the governor what the rules are going forward. So I don't know. Everything's going to be a work in progress, probably changing all the time. So keep your variable hat on, because I don't know where we're going.
Well, you really won't be meeting anytime soon. Not in person, you're not gonna be meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this Zoom meeting went well.
All right, we'll wait to hear what the selectmen do tomorrow night and April 28th. I'll try to set up another meeting for, Robin, you still out there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Where are we on the contracts? Anything's changed on settlements, or it's still the same couple? Everything else
Yep.
is open?
So you'll have DPW in front of you, and I preliminarily presented an MOA to the board that they have approved with some minor tweaks that's going back for hopeful ratification for another large unit. And if that ratifies, that will be in front of you in time.
Okay. Any idea on the timetable, like a week, 2 weeks on that, or?
I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks.
All right, I'll try to set up something with some of the warrant articles we didn't get to, and probably Mark Tisdale, all his departments, because we didn't get to him, and Paul we didn't get to. We'll see if we can bang those out. And then we'll see what the contracts are, and we'll have to do the school budget, and then that'll be it as far as the hearing part of the budget process. And then we'll have to bang out the votes and see what's going on, or what get pulled or what doesn't, and blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of the plan, I think, going forward. Any other comments from the members?
Ed, just one last thing. I saw Mr. Rowe's very detailed spreadsheet from the email about how revenues were impacted in 2007 to 2010. I'm wondering if we could have an idiot-proof version of that, where it's just very high level, sort of what was the revenue reductions for each of those years overall, including all of the line items, so that way it's a little bit easier to comprehend. Idiot-proof version. Does that make sense?
I don't know, Bill, what do you think? You need a project, Bill?
I got plenty of projects.
Yeah.
What you mean?
what
What
level
instead of the summary, Ben? You want what the individual components of that were?
So if you were to add up all of the line items, reductions in terms of revenue reductions for each of those years, what would be the overall percentage decrease in revenues for the town for each pertinent year? I mean, I see total local receipts is 96.1% for FY 2010 versus actual was 83.2. So does that mean that there's a 13% swing? Just maybe like a high level. So for FY 2010, as well as the other years, what did we see in terms of from the previous year? So FY 2009 to FY 2010, what was the revenue reduction?
So just like a summary total, state aid, local receipts, property taxes. How did that increase or decrease over the 4 years?
Exactly, and like maybe even if it doesn't even need to be at the line item level, but at the revenue item level, but at the overall level. So if
I think we have subtotals by category on there, but yeah, we could do that.
Thank you very much.
That's easy enough.
Okay.
Yep.
Idiot proof.
All right. I guess that's it for right now.
Cameron, we're also gonna have to hear the CPC budget at some point too, right?
Yeah, it's one of the articles. Well, I don't think we got to that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, Eddie, did you do the fire yet?
What?
Did you do fire department?
No, that was another one we got to do.
All right, well, I didn't hear you say it, and I didn't think that had been heard yet. I thought that was on one of the ones we ended up canceling.
It was.
Yeah, okay.
I have to go back and try to piece it together, what we didn't get to and didn't get to. But
Yeah, well, I didn't want Chief Larissy to think he was being left out.
we'll give him a zero budget, see how he does with that.
He does the best budgets. I love his budgets. Those are terrific.
Okay.
Me too.
They're great.
All right,
They're great.
I need a motion to continue the public hearing to our next meeting, which I'm not sure when that's going to be, but
I thought, yeah, but we got to do that. I thought we were supposed to meet Wednesday and Thursday next week.
we can if you want to.
I thought that was the email we got from Vaughn. I thought we were gonna be meeting next week, 2 days.
Yeah, I mentioned it as a possibility, Mr. Chairman. You had mentioned to me to kind of put it out there as a possibility, so I found it out.
Because you gotta give a date, you gotta give a date and time to continue the hearing.
Exactly.
So if you gotta, I would move that we, what is it? What's the word? I just lost that on my head.
Continue.
I move that we, table the public hearing until April 29th at 7:30 PM on our virtual meeting.
Oh, I'll second that.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have some new business to just mention, Ed. I
Wait
know
a
that
minute, we got a motion on the
Vote
floor.
on the motion first, and then
All right, go ahead.
we'll do
I
that.
didn't realize it was,
We have to do
okay.
the roll on this one, so, Bob,
It's not gonna bang into the selectmen's meeting, is it?
what?
He's meeting on Tuesday, the 28th.
That's okay, so what?
Yeah.
We just don't want to be, we don't have to be live, Michael, do
We
we?
don't have to be live, we can do our own.
No, we have to be we have to be open for a public hearing.
Yeah, we gotta be
Yeah,
live.
but you have to be live on TV? You could be live on the internet without being live on TV.
That's correct.
Has to be open for public
Yeah,
comment.
John, as long as we're advertising how to get onto our bridge, it doesn't matter what the SMAC video is playing live, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, all right.
All right. We okay with that?
Is the
Yeah.
redevelopment authority having public hearings that night? Okay, just checking.
What time's the redevelopment authority meeting?
Well, you want Wednesday, you want to move to Thursday?
Doesn't matter.
If we don't, I mean,
As long as we're okay with, people can get in and talk, I
if
think. we're
it
okay.
doesn't have to be broadcast live, then I would leave it as Wednesday, the 29th at 7:30 through our virtual meeting.
Let's do that.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay.
So can I, sorry to interrupt, but just make
We
sure
have
that
to vote.
whoever is operating this uses the record feature in your virtual meeting software. The
Yep.
town platform is Google Meet. And there is a record function, and then, and we talked about some of this in our virtual meeting. That can be uploaded for SMAC to replay.
Yeah,
Right.
Google,
And-
to your point, Google might be a good idea. Zoom can also record, but they've had issues with security on, I don't know how much that matters. you
Yeah,
know,
the
'cause it's-
bottom line is between security and the interface with SMAC, the tech staff wants the town to be on Google Meet.
Yeah, I have no problem with
I guess
Google
the
Meet.
question I'd raise with that is if it's not being broadcast live, does it really matter if we just record it?
Again, I say the interface, we're told the interface works better, so why, but I mean,
Do
I
you
don't
want to
care
ask
what
Michael
software
Hammond?
you
I'm
use.
asking Mike Hammond if it's recorded, if it's just a recording, does it matter if it's in Zoom or Google Meets?
I would add that I've been on a lot of public meetings at the state and local level in the last 3 weeks, scouting for my state agency. They're using a variety of software. However, Zoom is one of the top choices in what they're using in terms of providing these services. So I'm not sure what the criticism of Zoom as a platform is. I don't follow that. But.
And it's easily hacked.
Yeah,
No, they have good security.
of that's been fixed, but you know, it doesn't matter to me.
Coming to get you.
Folks, if I could chime in real briefly, Mark Zamanian.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have had experience both on Zoom and Google Hangouts, and I will tell you that Mass Maritime got hacked today. My son's midterms were delayed. He almost lost a half an hour of his time due to a Zoom recording. They're actually switching to Cisco WebEx, or they're looking into it. We've had excellent success with Google Hangouts, or Google Meet, whatever you want to call it. I do know at the virtual meeting, this was discussed at large, and my understanding, at least from the Board of Selectmen, from Trish, Shropshire, our IT gal, and from Mike Hammond, is that this is the preferred way for us to meet. I had no issue getting onto this with video tonight, but you were exposed in the sense that I was able to click or copy and paste, rather, this link into my computer. That's all I needed. Your security was wide open is what I'm getting at. So just food for thought.
So what's
Thank
the
you.
big security issue?
No, there's not, Ed.
The meeting.
It's a public meeting. It's true. It's, you know, there's nothing about what we show. If somebody wanted to watch what we're doing, it really doesn't matter.
Not a matter of watching it, but it's no big deal. I just saying, I was just curious from Mike Hammond that if the show was recorded in either platform, does it matter on the SMAC side for playing it back? I know what the discussion was the other night. I was on there. I know the Google Meet or the Google Hangout is the preferred method, and that's what I believe is going to be presented as the platform to be used for all boards.
I think I would like to survey Scott Carrera and get his opinion on the matter before.
Hey, Scott, you want to learn a new method by next week?
Lucky I lasted this long.
It's pretty much the same. It's the same ease of use, so.
But I was just wondering, Mike, I know the preference at SMAC is for that. I'm just asking for a simple, if you record it in the Google platform or you record it in the Zoom, can you use that recording on SMAC? Okay. All right. Well, you know, people have to understand that we're doing something new. And if this is what we're going to be using to get our meetings on the local cable, we should be listening to what they really want to use to present our meetings in the best possible fashion. Yeah, that's all. And that's why I wanted you to say it while everybody was on here, Mike.
Is there a motion still on the table? I've got lost.
Yes, there is.
It's a question now of which technology we're going to use.
Yeah, we have to be sure, Joel.
And everybody has to
doing.
be up to speed by next Wednesday,
Yeah.
whatever it's going to be.
I want to use Munis.
Hey, Vaughn, you want to learn some new stuff?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Well, I went into that meeting last night just for an ad hoc type group that's discussing doing these virtual meetings. And the week before I went into the selectmen's meeting, I got the invite. I had Bob send me the invite and I went in. And I know they were talking last night not to have this, not to have these meetings accessible so that everybody would be on video. They'd be able to call in and just be on the phone so they could hear the meeting and so forth, but you wouldn't be allowed to come in on video and be part of the meeting like this. To some extent, but that was just one of the points of discussion. But as whoever it was said, there is a motion on the floor to continue this public hearing on Wednesday, the 29th at 7:30 via our virtual meeting. I didn't say how it was going to be virtual. I just said it would be virtual.
Yeah,
I got that motion in a second, and I think you should call for the vote on that, Ed.
Yes. We got to do something. Okay, well.
All right, let's go.
Then we will figure out which way we're going. All right. The vote. Bob Desmond.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Deb Roberts.
He's muted.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hang on 1 second? Hang on.
Deb, you out there?
She's there.
I see her.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I see
On the
Deb.
motion to move the meeting till Wednesday, 7:30 p.m.
Fine.
Okay,
All in favor? Aye.
good. Great. Ben,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Aye. Oh,
Okay, that's good. Both of you. That's good. I like that.
all right. Yeah.
Dave,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Elliot.
All right, but I wish we would make sure that we email everybody about the new format and everything else, if there's going to be a change.
All right, Chet. Chet, you up there? We'll come back to Chet. Joel
Aye.
and Jim.
Aye.
Chet, you back?
I don't think Chet's here.
I think Chet's left.
Chet
Chet
gone?
left. Yeah, Chet left.
Left?
Yeah, looks that way.
Okay, so it passes 15-0. Okay.
And Eddie,
Chair votes aye.
Eddie, a message come out from Dr. Marcus. If people see it or not, but he sent a chat out to everybody saying that the schools are happy to help anybody, with the Google if you need it. So, and I know Tricia said the same thing. If people need some help or whatever, that she could help out with that as well.
All right, well, we'll see what we can do about that between now and Thursday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah, thank you. Getting late. What we need to do.
And for you, Ed, because Juan had said we might be meeting 2 days. If you are gonna meet 2 days, just remember you need to put those agendas in the same time so they'd be scheduled, but.
What do you mean? I don't follow that.
Juan had sent an email out saying we may meet 2 days next week. We may meet Wednesday and Thursday. I'm just saying if we're going to do that, we do have to make sure the agendas get posted timely so we could have both meetings.
Yeah, at Town Hall. Yeah, okay, yeah. The usual, yeah. All right.
Ed, can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
This is the first time I've attended a virtual meeting of any kind. And I know that Vaughn has spent an awful lot of time setting this one up and doing some research on it. So I want to thank Vaughn personally for this efforts that he did, knowing that there's many different formats and forms out there. You had to pick something. He picked this one. It could have been a lot worse. So I think you did pretty good.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Yep, thanks, Vaughn.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Okay, we'll look into this Google, whatever it's chat, whatever it's called. See what we can do
Google me.
Google me and figure out, I don't know, something. We'll talk to Trish, see what the story is.
Yeah, I have a question.
I don't know.
Yeah, are you
Wednesday.
taking new business, Ed?
I was gonna close them, get ready to adjourn.
Yeah. Oh, there's a motion to adjourn?
No.
Not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was multitasking. I'm sorry.
No, we just moved the public hearing. Now we're going to either adjourn, you want some new bid, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. There's a meeting that's scheduled for Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. It's going to be with the Massachusetts Division of Local Services. They're going to join our meeting. I think there's going to be 2 people headed up by Zach Blake, who works as a consultant to help municipalities with budgeting, anything from working out free cash issues where operating budgets are dependent on free cash and how to work away from that problem, capital budgeting, anything that we have as questions about the budget. They have a presentation about Stoughton that we could take advantage of, and there's no cost to it at all. It's totally free. the interesting thing about the meeting is that with everything going on, we were leaving it somewhat tentative to see whether the state was going to come out with information that we would be able to use productively in that meeting. So in other words, if we had to make decisions like Ben was talking about with the 1/12 versus, but and all that we went around with, he would be able to bring forward any new information from the state that we could discuss on that.
And you said that was May 5th?
Yes. Yep, May 5th. He's on the calendar now, but we were going to make sure that he had something solid to communicate with us about short-term and long-term, because with all the things going on being nuts, he wants to make sure he schedules it at a point in time that's beneficial to us.
I don't know if that would be beneficial at May 5th. I don't know.
Well, we
Things
can
have
push
changed
it.
a lot since we booked that meeting way back a couple months ago.
I know. Well, we can push it, but right now it's still on the books on May 5th.
Anybody else got any thoughts on? Do you think it'd be? I mean, how helpful it's going to be in the next 6 months kind of thing with all that's going on. Everything's up in the air. I don't know, but that's just my thought.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to mention something else. If people wanted to have a meeting with just phone numbers posted, we could do something like that too.
Yeah, so we could only
link out.
Yeah, we could only allow people who are members of the finance committee join by video using the link, and the rest of the folks could join by phone using the phone number, and that would prevent the Zoom bomb, I think, in hacking that folks are concerned about.
Okay.
And Vaughn has the
That's what we
ability
use.
to mute them from where he sits, and so they wouldn't even be able to interrupt until called on.
Right. That is what we use at school. And Vaughn, I just sent you a note and said I can show you how to set one of those up. It's pretty easy.
Oh yeah.
On what platform?
That would be Google. They call it a
talking
Hangout.
about Zoom
A Google meeting.
Google Hangout?
Yeah.
No, what I think Vaughn and Jess and I are referring to is actually Zoom.
Zoom, yeah.
You can do the same thing. I would add. Yeah.
Yeah, I just personally, I've had a lot of these meetings also, and I have never had a good experience with Google Meet in terms of meeting functionality. So I appreciate that we're using Zoom, and I'm sad to hear that it's tricky for SMAC for posting afterward. But I think, especially when we get into the more complicated parts of actually having people present material and screen share and everything else, I found this, if we became facile as a group with all of the functionality that Zoom has, I think we would all be much more appreciative that we have this platform to work with. So I would, maybe we could just try this again one more time next week and talk a little bit more about what the functions are. Maybe we have one trial with the Google Hangouts for comparison. But before we decide as a body what we're going with, I think the more important part is to have effective meetings. And if it's not so great for viewing after the fact for the public, but it's still possible, then I would prefer to think about, what's best for the meetings that we need to have.
I believe that the intent from the committee or the group that was meeting last night, I believe what they're trying to do is put together a guideline for any and all boards and committees to follow to have these remote meetings. And that's the platform they're going to recommend, is the Google platform. I just wanted to raise it because I was there. I was on it last night, and I heard Mike Hammond's concerns from the cable side of things, and I just thought the committee should be made aware of those and see where it goes. I'm open either way. I don't care. I mean, it's just something that, because I was on there last night, I just wanted to make sure people were aware of it.
I was on a Hangout meeting last night. At first, I couldn't get in Hangout at all because my Internet Explorer wouldn't let me in. So I installed Google Chrome and could get in that way. So as I couldn't get into the meeting without some extra work.
And I guess I would just add the Health Connector, Health Policy Commission, various state agencies, the Division of Fisheries, all of them are using either Zoom or Microsoft. I haven't seen anyone using Google Hangouts at the state level for meetings that probably have significant more participants.
Yeah.
Are public schools all using Google Meet? I think they are.
Yes, we're using Google Meet.
The schools are, but my kid wishes you guys would go back to Zoom because he says his experience was far better before his teacher was forced to switch. So
We didn't force anybody to switch. I
Oh,
want
you
to
did? Okay.
not force
They're probably
anybody.
trying to be compliant.
Thank you.
This meeting, all right,
I see what you
Oh.
mean, but you could also control that view for what's getting broadcast. So no, but if you have it on speaker view, it would only pin it on.
well, I mean.
Can
you
I
know-
make a motion? Can I make a motion?
Wait a minute, we gotta get the Zach thing off the table first.
I'm glad that I don't have all the intelligence on this to cast any kind of a question or whatever on it. I got to take Jess's and Ben's.
I don't want to switch. If Scott Carrera can work this like magic, I don't know if
You guys will be throwing me in a black hole. Dave, you got to save me.
I don't know. We'll have to discuss it with Vaughn, see what we can do, and check with Trish. It sounds like most people like the Zoom thing, but it's a problem for SMAC. I don't know if.
Scott,
Yeah.
you just need Stephanie. She uses Google Hangouts because that's what we use for the staff meeting.
She's the only reason why I'm even here.
I figured.
she'll start, if she has to join, she'll be asking for
figured as
overtime.
All right, we gotta move on.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if you want.
motion to adjourn.
Well,
Wait a
we're
minute.
just gonna wrap up on Zach. Just let me know if you want to reschedule them out or wait for their recommendation as to when they think they should come. You just let me know.
You should find out from him his recommendation, because everything's up in the air.
All right.
We don't
And
know.
Eddie, when you put the agenda together, I don't care what platform you're going on, but I strongly suggest you don't put the link to the video meeting on the agenda. Just put the phone number in that they can call into. Just make sure the committee members get the link to join the video meeting. Anybody else, if it's a public hearing, they can still be on the phone. They can still hear the meeting. And of course, people like Dr. Grimm or whatever that would have to be on would get the link. But I would strongly suggest you don't put that link on the agenda and have it out there for everybody. And I don't care which one you're using.
All right.
Yeah, with the link, you can hack in either one of them, Google or Zoom, either one. If the public.
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying you should just
Sure,
give the phone number they can call into with the meeting number or whatever, that you need to do the phone. But don't put the link in for the whichever platform you're going to use.
I agree.
That would be my suggestion.
Good idea. Good idea. Thank you.
All right. Well, we can do that. You're gonna check with Jack. I think I should see what he thinks as far as usefulness or
Yeah.
best to get out of the meeting. I don't think the 5th's gonna work personally with all that's going on.
Yeah. We
can
were
check
gonna
it.
we were gonna wait till the last week of April to make the final decision.
We
on it.
figured we'd
That
be
was-
all done with the budget and everything else. We'd have some time to talk, but that's out the window now. So
Yeah, I agree. I'll let you know. I'll stay in touch.
okay. All right. That's it for tonight. They get a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Okay, Bob,
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Vaughn,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes. So move.
Ben,
Yes, aye.
great, Jess,
Aye.
Ann, you still there?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Go on, Angelino,
Aye.
Dave Laurie,
Yes.
Marty,
Aye.
Scott,
Yes.
John Rock.
I'm not sure.
Well, give me a yes or no, or abstain, I don't
Yes.
care.
I made the motion, yes.
Good. Elliot,
Yes. Aye.
Chet's gone, right? All right, Joel. Joel, you still here?
Yeah, he's muted.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. 15-0. Okay, we're adjourned.
Scotty, make sure Steffi comes to shut you off.